I had determined that the best firm was E.F. Hutton. Similar to the Naval Academy, I went to that firm and I interviewed, and they asked me, who else are you interviewing with? And I said the same thing when they asked about the Naval Academy, which is I'm not interviewing with anybody else because I have done my research. This is the best firm for me to be at. And they said, well, what if we don't offer you a job? To which I said again, of course you will. I'm a great candidate. Let me tell you why. And they like that.
In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun about all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America.
Hi, I'm Joe Deshawn, and welcome to the Corporate Couch with Jeff Palacio. Today's episode is brought to you by Exec HQ, a C-suite fractional firm providing elite executives for your business. Today, Jeff is interviewing Paul Hatch. Paul began his career as an officer in the U.S. Navy after having graduated from the U.S. Navy Academy in Annapolis. Following his service, Paul joined E.F. Hutton as financial advisor and began a 30-year career at the firm. At E.F. Hutton and Morgan Stanley, Paul held the titles of Head of All Global Products and of Vice Chairman. Following his time at Morgan Stanley, Paul was appointed to the board of Focus Financial. He moved to UBS in 2014, where he was a group managing director and head of investment products and services for the Americas. Paul was a founder of Convergency Partners and the founder of Vestria Capital. You can learn more about Paul at vestriacapital.com. Let's listen as Jeff talks to Paul.
Paul, welcome to the Corporate Couch this afternoon.
Hey, thanks. I'm really excited to be on this couch.
Yeah, no, it's great. We never were really formally introduced. A good friend of mine, Teresa Carey, saw a post you did about kind of, I'll say, ageism, maybe possibly racism and possibly genderism in the workplace in today in terms of the older demographic. And I reached out to you on LinkedIn. You were kind enough to have a 30-minute call with me. And I thought you have a great background, and, we'll talk about, Stage3 Tribe, an initiative that you just started about a month ago. And then you have a great LinkedIn profile. I mean, I love that you've done some great things career-wise, but you're like your amateur barbecue chef, craft beer and Spanish wine enthusiast, optimist, occasional oracle, novice stoic, which we all are, I believe. But so just great to have you.
Thanks. It's great to be here. I think that's the thing people tell me about that profile all the time. I'm really glad that I did it because I've been in Wall Street for 40 years. I get tired of talking about that, to be honest. But also, I think LinkedIn is one of those unusual things that has developed from a business only to, business is always personal. People want to know who you are before they want to do business with you. And so I think what I saw was the people that who resonated most to me were people that opened up about themselves, and so that I could feel like I had a relationship with them. And when I wrote this thing out, I thought, nobody will even notice the Spanish wine thing, and everybody did.
And everybody picks that out.
It's which is great. I lived in Spain, and as you know, I do love Spanish wine. It's at a great price relative to some of the others.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'm pissed that you didn't put Italian wine lover, but that's fine.
well, I lived in Italy as well, as you also know, and it's great wine. But there are a billion people that know about Italian wine, and I find that the Spanish wine, for some reason, is under it's not quite as well known.
Yeah, no, it's all good, all good. Yeah, so I know you're pretty transparent on LinkedIn. Like you'll post something that you're, smoking a brisket or something like that on, Friday night or whatever. But even though people that know you fairly well, Paul, what would one thing surprise them about you?
I am very transparent, so there aren't a lot of things people don't know about me, particularly those who have been friends for a long time. But I've moved a lot in my life. I was part of a military family, and I was in the Navy myself. I went to school at the Naval Academy, and so I'm very used to moving from one place to another. And I actually think it's one of the things that made me who I am. But people think of me as a Rolling Stone. They never think of me as somebody who has a home, except that I've always felt that Texas is my home. I've moved to Texas, and I've made a decision, which I have no intention of going back on, that I will live in Texas for the rest of my life. I love our country. I enjoyed living in New York. I've enjoyed living in Europe. I've enjoyed traveling all over. But this has always felt like home to me. I just enjoy everything about the state and the people, and it's super convenient. And you might have heard that they don't charge you any income tax, which is quite a bit different than California and New York, where I
Right,
been in the
right.
past. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
So
nice. And your
yeah,
basements never flood in Dallas, so
that,
there you go.
that's true. We have
Because there
lots
are
of
none.
floods. We have lots of floods, but we don't have lots of basements.
I think you were born in Florida, but you grew up mainly in Texas. What was fun for you growing up?
There's no place that I grew. If you had to pick out one place that I grew up in, it would be Spain. We moved every year. The longest I stayed anywhere was 2.5 year. I went to 12 different primary schools. I was the only one in my family that didn't go to 4 or more high schools, and I only went to 3. In the military, you have to give you a permanent residence. And my father, who was from Texas, gave us his residence, but we never lived there. And I even got appointed by the state of Texas to go to the Naval Academy, even though I had never actually gone to school there or otherwise. But Texas has always captured my imagination. I always thought of myself as Texas. And if you've ever been to Texas, you know that people think they're Texas first and then American second. I kind of always felt that way myself,
Wow.
but I was 63 before I really got to come here and live. And now that I'm here, I've decided like, wow, I don't need to live anywhere else. I've been a lot of places. I know a lot of great things about places, and I loved everywhere I've ever been. I've found something good about it. But Texas is where I'm going.
No, that's so interesting. So, did you have aspirations growing up? Since you came from a naval.
Yeah, if there's one thing about me, people might tell you is I have a tendency to be a really long-term planner, and I think about what's going to happen. When I was 4 years old, I decided I was going to go to the Naval Academy. Not a surprise. My father went there. My grandfather went there. I never really thought about anything else. I went to a football game, and it was so exciting, and everybody was yelling and screaming. And those were the days when Navy was quite good. I decided I was gonna. That's where I was gonna go. I didn't apply anywhere else. My father once said, like, "What happens if they don't accept you?" Which had happened to my brother, and I said, "That's ridiculous. Of course they'll accept me." I was born with a lot of confidence, even though I have no reason to be confident. but I still to this day think about the things that I learned. And one of them, one of the things I'd say about military, because people ask me all the time, well, wasn't it bad having to move all the time? And the answer is no, it was great. And the life lesson I learned from that was embracing change. And so you can take me and throw me anywhere, and can be a country in which I don't speak the language at all, but I'll figure out how to communicate with people, and I'll have a friend by the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Now, that football game you attended when you were young, was it Army Navy? Because that's the big.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, which if you haven't ever been, it's a different football game than any other football game you'll ever watch.
Hmm.
Of course, it's a rivalry, and everybody knows that. But it's the only rivalry where everybody on the field is willing to die for everybody in the stands, and that alone makes it interesting. But to and I again, I love the University OU Texas games coming up, and I'm going to be rooting for Texas. But it's quite different when you're rooting for the Navy and you're rooting for the Army. And we have, because of that, we have millions of people who have a reason to cheer for us. And the men and women that go there, I'm sure I wouldn't get into it now because they're so talented. They are so committed. They are just amazing men and women. You know, I hear people complain about different generations all the time, you know, and I'm quite certain that they complained about my generation when I was younger as well. But the men and women that are at the service academies that give their country another 6 years of service and oftentimes a lifetime of service, we're really lucky. We're in really good hands.
Yeah, I think you're the ninth or tenth ex-military veteran. Most of them went to the academy. You might know Abe Abrams, whose
Oh
dad
yeah, sure.
Chester. So I interviewed Bob, or Abe, I should say, on my podcast, and talk about military family. So he had three brothers and three sisters. So all of them served in the army. They were officers, and his three sisters married army
Yeah.
officers.
Yes, of course. As did my siblings as well.
Yeah.
It's an easy thing to do, and it's a great family heritage. We're very proud of it. Interestingly, my daughter, when she became a junior high school, came to me and asked me why I didn't want her to go to the Naval Academy. I said, I never said that to you, and she said that you said it to other people, and I heard you. And so I had to explain that my family has served for hundreds of years and sacrificed for hundreds of years. And while I myself personally was more than willing to do so, and I feel proud that I got to serve my country, she was my daughter. And I did not want her to put herself in danger. But I told her that I would support her if she did, but I would also tell her that, like, I'm not going to sleep a day until the moment you're out of the military. You don't think about your own safety in those circumstances, but I
Right.
can remember thinking because my brothers were in the Desert Storm, and I can remember thinking every single day, "Oh my God, I'm going to hear about an A6 crashing." And he had some pretty hairy times when he was there. And I have to admit, when he finally came back, my brother's my older brother, and I usually, it's a brother rivalry things. I never say anything good about him, but I gave him a really big hug when he came back,
That's
and I
awesome.
was really happy to see him there. My daughter actually got into the Naval Academy. She served two years there and made a decision that it wasn't for her. I was actually more proud of her for making the right decision to leave than I was for her when she got accepted. And she's doing great now, and I sleep much better.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. So I noticed you majored at the Naval Academy in engineering and political science. What was your kind of thinking behind those two majors?
Well, the Naval Academy is an engineering school, period. So everybody gets an engineering degree. You have no choice. But you can have a major. So my degree is a bachelor degree of general engineering, a bachelor of science degree in general engineering. But you have an opportunity to choose what is called a major, but is in fact a minor. So
Okay.
uh, I picked political science because I think it's just a really interesting discipline, and even to this day, I enjoy talking about politics. I would never be a politician. I am disappointed tremendously in many of the men and women that we have in those places. But I believe that the vast majority of them that serve for the right reasons. And even though I might disagree with them, I know that is a hard way to make a living. Nobody goes there for the money. They go there because they believe that they can serve our country and do well. Not everybody's going to agree with that sentiment, but I do. And I lived in DC and I saw it. And I also have great respect for them for taking time out of their lives, which because you don't have to be the president of the United States to find out politics is an all-consuming thing, whether you're on a local basis or otherwise. But somebody's got to do it. While I was willing to give my life to my country fighting, there's no way I would ever be a politician.
Right. That's a different kind of fight.
Yeah, yeah.
So you served in the U.S. Navy after graduating from the Naval Academy, and thank you, Paul, for your service. Did you ever think of making it a career?
I from the time I was 4 years old when I decided I was going, I thought it was going to be a career. I was going to be a pilot like everybody else. And unfortunately for me, I think it's because my mother smoked cigarettes when she was pregnant and drank a lot of whiskey. Because in those days, that's how they dealt with it.
Whiskey sours.
Whiskey sours, exactly. My mother was a saint, so I shouldn't say it that way. But I can't see, and so I couldn't fly and I couldn't be a pilot. I didn't know that until I was a junior at the Naval Academy, which, by the way, I found out the day after. So you walk into the Naval Academy, you have 2 years to decide whether you really want to make it a career. And during those 2 years, anybody can leave at any time. But the first day of the third year, you sign a contract that says you're going to finish up the Naval Academy, which is 2 more years, and then you're going to serve 6 years for the country. That's your minimum obligation, 8 years. You're signing it when you're 19 and 20 years old. I signed mine. And the next day I went to get my eyes examined because I walked by an officer and I couldn't tell whether it was an officer or a midshipman. And I wasn't going to salute the midshipman. So I got put on report. I went back, got my eyes looked at, and turned out I was never going to be a pilot. And I had to, from that day on, think about what I was going to do, but I had no choice. I was already committed to do 8 years. But I also made a decision on that day. I would serve my time and then I would leave, because if I wasn't going to be a pilot, I didn't want to do anything else. That's all I wanted to do. That's what happened. I graduated. I served 6 years. I loved it, but I'm still the only one that didn't retire from my family. Everybody else retired.
Well, let's talk about your professional post-U.S. Navy career. Did you get a job immediately at E.F. Hutton? And maybe explain to our younger listeners what E.F. Hutton was.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that same day that I decided that I was going to get out of the Navy 8 years from then, I started thinking about what I wanted to do. It only took me about 4 years to figure that out, but I still had another 4 years left to go. I decided I wanted to be an advisor. And I did that because the markets were really interesting at the time. It was in the early 80s. And I felt like I could be helpful to people in helping put together portfolios. My father had invested money for me and done very well and taught me a lot. I started evaluating my options with 2 years left to go. And with 1 year left to go, I went. I had determined that the best firm at the time, reputation-wise, was E.F. Hutton. Some of you will remember E.F. Hutton. When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. And so I went, and it was the only firm similar to the Naval Academy. I went to that firm and I interviewed, and they asked me, who else are you interviewing with? And I said the same thing when they asked about the Naval Academy, which is I'm not interviewing with anybody else, because I have done my research. This is the best firm for me to be at. And they said, well, what if we don't offer you a job? To which I said again, of course you will. I'm a great candidate. Let me tell you why. And they like that.
Yeah, sure.
So I did that. And the day that I got back from training, there was an announcement that E.F. Hutton was pleading guilty to 2,000 counts of wire fraud. So really wasn't the best timing to become an advisor and pick up a phone and say, hey, I'm calling from E.F. Hutton. Those crooks.
Oh, wow. So what you
So
learn, I mean, so you were like, we're basically started our careers around the same time frame. So, I mean, in those days it was smile and dial, get on the phone. I mean, so you had to learn a lot, not only from just doing that, and I'm sure there was a lot of cold calling, but so you're the first day on the phones, the press has wire fraud. So tell us about that experience.
yeah, I've got a couple of them that actually connect to that because my branch manager wrote this memo, which was the smoking gun document that E.F. Hutton had to provide to end up being provided to the government. That so of course our name and our office was in the press all the time, and it was really hard to do well. And I just didn't like cold calling at all. And for those of you who haven't done it, I don't know if you want to pull out your toenails and fingernails, or your teeth without any kind of Novocaine, but it's not really good. But what I did have is I knew how to manage people, and so I took all the money that E.F. Hutton was paying me, and I hired people. Now these were days when nobody had a team, and I actually hired a person and trained him to cold call. So you might ask, well, how can someone who doesn't like to cold call and hasn't really done much of it teach somebody else? But you know what they say: if you can't do it, teach it. And I don't know if that's actually true, but I do know that I taught him and four others. And at the end of the year, I had 5 people on my team. Nobody else had more than one on their team. I had 5 people. I was a brand new advisor. All those people that I trained, they're still in the business and they're still super successful. I feel super proud about teaching and training them. And we did, as a team, we did really, really well. And ultimately, I did so well there that I decided, instead of being an advisor, I wanted to be a branch manager. And that was the next big journey that I have, to change from being an advisor to actually managing offices and people.
So were these people that the 5 people, were they E.F. Hutton employees or like kind of 1099s? You were just paying them out of your pocket?
I paid them out of my pocket. They were not
Wow.
they were not being paid. 100% of their compensation came from me. At
Right.
one time, and the branch manager came to me and said, like, you're spending 100% of your income. And I said, yeah, yeah, I do know. He said, well, how's that going to work? I said, well, because I'm going to take that money and I'm investing it, and I'll make more money by managing those people than I would be if I tried to do it myself. Because I have 3 people on the phone right now. If it was just me, I would have to be on the phone. That's only one person. So he didn't think it was going to work, but I proved him wrong.
Yeah.
And I became one of the top 10% in the entire firm in less than 3 years. And ultimately, it helped guide my career, because what is normal now, which is many people have formed teams because they understand that you can deliver more value to the client. If you show a picture of 20 people standing there and say, this is our team, help you, versus someone else who says, like, oh yeah, I don't have a team, I just do it myself. Pretty good advantage.
Wow. So 2 questions about that. Where were you living at this time when you had 5 people, and how did you afford to live? If you-
I could afford to live because I knew how to make them. Their job was to find people for me, put them in front of me, and then my job was to find out from those people what their challenges were and what they were trying to accomplish. And I could do that more by paying them to do that job, right? Like, there's an old saying that if you can pay somebody to do your job less than it costs you to do the job, that's what you should do. There's another saying that says, if you're not good at something, don't do it.
right.
And I followed both of those precepts, right? The first
Yeah.
one was, I wasn't good at cold calling, not because I didn't know what needed to be done. I did know what needed to be done. I just didn't like to do it. It's
Right.
like making spaghetti. You can tell me how to make spaghetti, but you can't make me like it. And so I got other people to do that. And I opened up more accounts and brought in more assets than anybody in the class. That was how I was able to afford it. I was living in Washington, D.C. My car payment and my apartment payment, because those were the days when it was 14% mortgages, 14%.
Right.
Yeah. Those were days it was 14%, and I didn't make enough money to pay those two bills, much less the bills that I paid for them. So I dipped into my savings. I was underwater for a while, but not for very long.
Wow.
But soon enough, I was generating enough to not only pay all of them, but to pay all the other bills that I had and then some.
Right.
It's like any other entrepreneur. You just you do the things that you have to do. You invest in your business, and you remember it doesn't matter who believes in you. It only matters if you believe in you.
They talk about job carving now. So it's, you don't hire one person to be a Swiss Army knife and try to find a unicorn, but find, great people that are really good at certain role and carve out jobs. And you were doing it.
Yeah,
And
it's the old the other thing is always hire people that are better than you.
yeah,
Go out and find people that are better than you and help them become better than they are.
yeah,
And that's the good thing was after going to the Naval Academy and serving 6 years, that was a core competency that I had that the other 27-year-olds that I was competing against
right.
didn't. Right, like they'd worked in corporations where they were lucky if they got to hit the copy button on the copier. And meantime, I'm in the Black Sea staring down the Russian. Right, like so by the time I got my job, I think I forgot to tell you this, but my job when I was in DC as after I got off my ship was to go brief President Reagan and Vice President George Bush on the Middle East. So
Wow.
I had an advantage of walking into rooms because it's like, okay, well, I've briefed the president of the United States, so I don't care if this guy's a billionaire or that person is the CEO. You guys are small people compared to the president. And so I had a lot of confidence, and I had the background that I needed academically to do all that because I was an engineer. And numbers came easy to me. And also, I had all those skills that I built from moving every single year and walking into a room where nobody knows who you are and being willing to go up to a person and say, "Hey, my name's Paul Hatch. What's yours?"
What a gift. I heard Reagan, even though you weren't on the kind of Russian policy, he asked you what you thought about something in the Cold War, a Cold War issue, and you said, "Well, it's the old Russian proverb, trust but verify," and then he used it.
Yeah, he stole it from me. That is one of my favorite Reagan things. It's so good.
Yeah,
And it's so true. It's a very, it's a timeless
yeah.
thing for sure.
What a career. I mean, about 40 years on Wall Street, iconic companies, E.F. Hutton, Smith Barney, Morgan Stanley, which I believe bought Smith Barney, UBS, huge roles globally, vice chairman. I mean, I know it's hard to encapsulate 40 years and working for these iconic companies, but kind of what was the biggest changes in the industry from the start to the end? And really, what was the evolution of leadership? Like, how was leadership different from the, kind of the mid 80s to, when you left UBS in 2019?
The biggest thing that happens when you leave the military, and I'll start with that because one of the things that, of course, everybody learns when they serve is the mission is more important than the individual, and that you are doing something that is bigger than yourself. And that's very powerful. When you go into Wall Street, the opposite becomes true. All of a sudden, it's the individual, and it's a huge focus on the individual. What I saw from the change was, we all remember Greed is Good. Well, of course, that was a movie, but, that captured what a lot of people thought about Wall Street. And while it wasn't all true, there was enough of it that I believe that the business moved from a buyer beware business to a fiduciary business. And that's, to be technical, it's going from being a broker, which is what we were called then, to being a financial advisor or a fiduciary today as with an RIA. And so that was in the wealth management business. But, what I saw was massive consolidations. What I saw was a lot of redefining what's important in Wall Street and what's important to the country. I think those things happened over time. I think the 07, 08 crises created an even better playing field. So what I would say is that leadership was very smart and talented when I got there, but it was focused on the individual and the firm versus the client as opposed to the firm and the client. And I believe that has changed. And one of the things is people see that in the wealth management space, people see that teams do better. I think it's also true that people think that just because you can make more money doesn't mean you should be doing those things. And I think, capitalism is evolving, Wall Street is evolving, and people are seeing that it's more than just what's the highest, the best way to get a profit. You have to do both. You have to be able to hold both of those things in your things. You got to do things that are right for your clients, and you got to do things that are right for you. And that really wasn't the way Wall Street was 40 years ago, but it is the driving force now. And partly because people have seen by doing the right thing, you can end up doing the best thing. I think that's really important. I don't know where the next evolution of capitalism will go, but I believe that it will go, and as George W. Bush might have said, a kindler and gentler version of capitalism, because I think the world can't survive in the kind of state of conflict that we have right now. And I think there has to be a different way that we treat each other.
Yeah,
That's what's happening in my lifetime. It's getting better. I still worry, when I grew up, it was the Billy Joel song, about being under your desk and waiting for the world to end, because that's what it was when you were 4 and 5 years old. You knew the world was going to get, the U.S. and Russia were going to go to war and destroy the earth, and you weren't going to have a life. These days, I'm optimistic but I'm optimistic, as bad as things look in the world, that we always find a way to rally. And mankind, I think, will do that. There's been more innovation in the last 20 years than in the last 20 millennia. Is that going to be what happens? I don't know. But I believe that mankind survives. And I do, because I believe that mankind is fundamentally kind. Yeah. And not everybody, not every human, not everyone, but I believe they are fundamentally, and that I believe between the science and the nature that we will get to the right place. But predicting when, how, all that stuff is impossible.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Exec HQ, a C-suite fractional firm providing elite executives for your business. If you're having challenges taking your business to the next level, if you want to augment your leadership team, or prepare your company for increased growth, profitability, and an eventual successful exit, we have seasoned executives from every C-suite position ensuring a perfect fit for your needs and the dynamics of your industry. You will work with senior leaders who like to roll up their sleeves while checking their egos at the door. They can help your business in specific services such as strategic planning, executive leadership coaching, financial management, corporate governance, marketing, sales management, and many other advisory solutions vital to your business success. That's exechq.com. To learn more, go to exechq.com or email Jeff Palacio at jeff.palacio@exechq.com.
I was working for Capital One in their mortgage division during from 05 to 09. So I saw the boom and the bust. But what was it like for you, and where were you at during 07, 08 in terms of because you were in the heart of it?
Yeah, I was in the heart of it. In the heart of it. My responsibilities at Citibank, which was the largest bank in the world at the time, was to make sure globally that the investments that were recommended and bought and managed by advisors, private bankers, consumer bankers in every country around the world. I was responsible for all of those details. So what kind of due diligence that we did, how we monitored what recommendations were made, how we watched how their returns went. I was responsible for all of that. And I got to tell you, I'm still shocked by it all. You can explain intellectually what happened. There are many things that could potentially have changed that didn't happen. But the biggest thing that happened, I think, is that people remembered that the markets and life are risky, and there's no such thing as taking risk out. You always have it, and learning how to work with it. And every day it was something new. Every day we were behind the ball because we would start to take over the challenges with bad mortgages. And then all of a sudden, we have these preferreds that are, that in less than 24 hours went from a viable market to not a viable market. And, just hundreds of billions of dollars in the hands of a lot of Americans that couldn't afford that. It was really terrible. And I made a promise to myself that I would dedicate the rest of my career to making certain to do everything that I could so that the industry did a better job for their clients. And I would say, I don't think the industry did. I think there were things we could have done better. And it's one of the reasons I ultimately, after working almost 40 years for large global banks, because I worked for Morgan Stanley and UBS and Citibank, all great firms. But I decided that I would go in the independent space, which is where I am now. And I love it because we have a small organization. We know who everybody is. And we are really focused on how we can truly do the very best job we can for clients. It's one of the reasons we invest in registered investment advisors. Broker dealers are not required to do that by law. There are many reasons why that is, but I like the fiduciary standard, and I believe it's the best one for clients. I believe it's the best one for advisors, and I believe it's the best one for shareholders. Even though I acknowledge that all of those other things are required and necessary, and they will do well. I'm going to focus my time every day on making sure there is nothing we miss in helping our advisors and our clients.
So you're under, again, iconic companies, a corporate umbrella for almost 40 years on Wall Street. Was there one event that said, okay, I'm done with corporate America. I'm going to go, start my own company. What was it for you, Paul?
So I went to work for the government. I was in the Navy. That's a huge organization with hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people. Then I go to E.F. Hutton, which also is a really big place. It only got bigger as time went by, and ultimately ended up at Citi. And then I ended up at Morgan Stanley. And then I thought, well, I'll try working for a foreign bank. Maybe that's different. And it was the point for me was when I felt one of the reasons I went from being an advisor to being a field leader and then going and being in senior management was because I felt like I could make the place better. And there was an event in which I went to after working for 3 different banks, all of them decent banks. They're not immoral. It's just that they're very large, they're very complex, they're very challenging, and I felt like I, as an individual, couldn't have the impact that I wanted to have. That was really it. It was really, I kept thinking, well, if I just get one more promotion, then I'm really going to be able to help everybody. But what happens when you get another promotion is you get to a sphere, you think that means you're now making all the decisions. That's exactly opposite. You are making less decisions than you ever were because everyone has a say in what you do. The people that work for you have a say. The people that you sell to have a say. The people on your board of directors have a say. The people, everyone has a say into what you do. And so I all of a sudden realized, well, yes, I have an impact, but it's not the impact that I thought I have, because now I have to go down to these guys and convince them to do this, and then convince these people to do that. And then the people above me, I had to say, like, you got to give me this money because you got to be able to do this. So
Right.
even though I believed that I knew what needed to be done, I couldn't get what I wanted done. And I got frustrated. And I decided I'm going to go to a place where I could make any decision I want, and I don't have to check with anybody. So those of you who are thinking about being an entrepreneur, it is the hardest thing you will ever do in your life. But it is also the most satisfying thing that you will ever do in your life. And I wake up every single day thinking I'm a truly blessed man, and I love the fact that I'm doing this. And it's nothing, you know, I'm not staying in the big hotel. I'm not flying first class. I'm not doing any of those things. You know, I'm driving myself. And that's another thing that's great. You know, you get into one of these really big, important things, and you find it's like when you get older, you find none of the things that you thought when you were young are important anymore. You know, you don't really care that you have a bigger house or a faster car. None of that means anything to you. The only thing that means anything to you is the health of your family and your friends and your colleagues. You know, are you doing something that you're proud of? That's what ends up happening. So I just love what I do now. And I would encourage any young men and women, find something that you think you can really change, go do it. Work
So
for yourself.
you have this amazing experience. You're a people person. You relate to all different types of people because you've moved 60 times. But what, once you got out of that corporate umbrella, what was the big surprise? Now I'm responsible for this, and oh, I didn't know I was going to have to do this. What were those kind of things for you, Paul?
There were a lot of them. What you'll find, particularly in if you've been senior in a thing, you first thing you find out is nobody returns your calls anymore. And you used to think they always returned your call because you were, of course, you were charming and handsome and things like. No, they were calling you because that was the job you had, and they had to go through you. And so you at first it upsets you. And then you realize, like, oh, that's just the way life is. So some people that were your friends were only your friends because of the things that you could do for them. That's more on you, right? Like, well, you didn't realize that. What you find is some people that you think were your friends were just your acquaintances and business colleagues. Nice thing is, you think some people that were just kind of casual things, you find out like when like things are really down, all of a sudden you get a call from this person and they said, "Hey, I heard, things weren't so great. And I just wanted to call you and tell you, I hope things get better because you really helped me in my career, and I've always wanted to thank you." And you get calls like that, it makes it all worthwhile. So I think that's what I walked away with, because I walked away after 40 years in a place, and I have an enormous network. But I also know that my friends changed, and now it's really good, because if people do not perceive they're going to get something from you, you can then see they're doing things only because you have a certain influence. So if you ever want to know who your friends are, you go through something like this, you'll find out.
Right.
It's refreshing, it's invigorating, and it's liberating, because now everybody that you make friends with, they're your friends because they're your friends, because they're good people. They like you and trust you, and you like them and trust them. And so my network didn't shrink; it actually increased.
Yeah.
But it was different, and I'm thankful for that.
It looks like you've founded your company about 2 years ago. Tell us about your company and what you do to help people.
The company's name is Vestria, which is invest in RIAs. That's how we came up with the name. And as I left, I always wanted to do things with smaller units and smaller businesses. And RIAs are the quintessential smaller business. They're started by men and women who are like just themselves, and they build it over time through incredible hard work and real commitment. And we try to help those, because I came from these really scaled machines. I can help them, one, find capital, because if you're an entrepreneur, and anybody who's this, if you're ever going to be one, the hardest thing that you're going to do is go find capital. So we try to find capital and then place it in the hands of RIAs that we think will do a great job for their clients and will grow their businesses. And we try to help them scale. That's all we're trying to do is take people, men and women who've already shown patterns of success, and finding out whether it's capital, resources, or technology, or just some training that they need so they can do a better job for their clients. And that ultimately we are aligned with them because we own some piece of them. And we like it when we own a big piece and they own a big piece, because we want them to understand we're aligned with doing a great job for their client. That ultimately will mean a good job for things. That's my day job, by the way. I have a passion project, which I think we've talked about, which is I found out that a lot of men and women who are my colleagues were calling me and having lost their job and found it very difficult to get a job afterwards. And that is true for men and women who are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, that there is a bias against them. I did some original research and found out over 80% of the people over 50 had either experienced ageism or had witnessed it directly firsthand to a friend. And that number is way too high. The other thing that we found out is that the typical biases against people who are older than 50 is they don't have a long enough runway because they're going to retire. Well, the reality is that men and women who are in those age groups actually have longer runway than employees who are 25 to 35. It turns out that people who are 25 to 35 like to go to other companies, and their average tenure is 4 years, whereas over 50, the average tenure is 10 years. Right. And and the reason that is that once you get to be 50, you have already decided you're not going to be the CEO, but you like your company, or you like working, or you like your clients, or you just like having an impact on the world. And so the important thing isn't the size of your office, or whether you're a managing director, or whether you got to go on the annual corporate trip. What really excites you is your ability to really help the younger employees and the clients, and you know them really well, and you know them better than everybody else does, and you have wisdom. You know, it's true. It's true that over time, if you keep getting hit in the head, you know how to avoid being hit in the head. And wisdom is a combination of a lot of knowledge, but a lot of it is like, I know what not to do to screw things up, and you can impart that to the others, because you could say, I remember when I was 35, this is what you're thinking, isn't it? And they'll say yes, and you'll say like, well, this is what's going to happen, because I've only seen that one 15 times. Right. So I do believe that that today people are missing out on hiring men and women who are 50 plus, and so I've created a Stage3 Tribe, which is a group of men and women, a community that are getting together to help each other find full employment. We use the word full employment because we believe that a lot of them have part-time jobs that don't fully take advantage of all their skills, and that there are many different things that they can do. They can be an entrepreneur, they can be a fractional executive, they can be a part-timer, they can be a volunteer. There are just so many different things that they can do. But the thing they don't want to do is sit in a chair and watch TV. Right. The thing that so what they want to do is, and one of the things you find is when you'll see this in your families too, is when you can find people who are older than 50 and pair them with people who are under 35, you have a really good team, because you get the wisdom and the energy, and you get the really good ideas, but you also get the wisdom like, yeah, that's a really good idea, but let me tell you when it was already done. Most of the things that you come up with have been come up with by somebody else. Right. And oftentimes you're going to find that if you have somebody who's over 55, they can lean in and say, I've seen that before. This is what we might have to worry about. Doesn't mean you have to change the decision, but it just gives you the perspective of age that truly can only be earned. The other thing about ageism is Everybody goes through it. Doesn't matter if you're black or white, doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter if you were born in the UK or you were born in America or you were born in the Ukraine. You're going to get old, and you're going to have people who form an opinion of you by looking at you. Whether that's that person, can't log in, right? Like they can't log in. Okay, well, they find out they actually can. Well, that person can't, come to work at 8 and stay till 5. As you find out, older workers have a much better record of when they come in, when they leave, have a much better record of how many days of vacation they take or don't take, have a better reputation for not leaving the firm. All of those things, as it turns out, are wrong. And I would say, particularly as AI sense dominate, their ability to operate machinery or computers or anything digital is only going to improve. And I think it's what we see is the only age group that's actually growing now is over 65. All other age groups are shrinking. And we see that those numbers as the boomers retire. What's happening is instead of fully retiring, they're doing a little bit of retiring and they're doing a little bit of working. They do what they want to do.
Couple of questions. So you did a LinkedIn post about this and it got like 800,000 impressions. Am I right there? I mean,
yes, you are.
That's
800,000.
crazy. And it was about this ageism and how people that want to still contribute to companies and their success and mentoring, the younger team members, and they're just not interested in getting work. So you started this Stage3 Tribe, I believe. I actually attended one meeting because it was right after we met, and I think it's fantastic. So how could people find out more about this, Paul, and maybe join in and be part of your tribe?
Yeah, you can go into LinkedIn and look for Stage3 Tribe and sign up. We have a call every week, and we are in the business. We are in the process of building a website so that we can provide additional ways to provide content for you. It's all about how to get jobs. We are focused on the 50 plus, but if you want to join us and you're 23, you're welcome to join us. Anybody that wants to come, we're there, and we intend to, our focus is one thing and one thing only: that men and women who are over the age of 50 have the opportunity to give back in any way that they think is appropriate. Right? Like it doesn't matter. You don't want to work full time, don't. You want to work 3 months out of the year, do that. I have a good friend who does that. She goes off to Europe and Asia and everywhere else. Our movement, which is free, is meant to do one thing and one thing only: help create a community around you and your search for a job. There's a book called Never Search Alone, and that's what we're trying to do, is make sure you're never alone. The only thing that happens to you is you get into a community where people pat you on the back and say, like, you know what, I know what you're going through, and I'm here to tell you you're pretty good. And sometimes that's, if you lose your job, you often think it's because of you. And I'm here to tell you, having worked at all these firms, it's almost never you.
Right.
Sometimes that happens. The vast majority of times it has nothing to do with you at all. It might have something to do with the macro economy. It might have something to do with some strategic decision they made 5 years ago. There are two things that are bad. First, they're never going to tell you that. They're going to tell you because their lawyers tell you, okay, well, we're eliminating your job, and that's usually how it goes. And you think, like, well, what about that person next to me? I do much better than them. You're never going to know why it wasn't that person.
Right.
And what you have to do, it's like everything else. You can't do anything about the past. You have to focus on the future, and that's what we try to get everybody to do. We try to get everybody to stay in the present and focus on the future, and not talk about what they used to do, and that everyone should be open. And that's what we want, is to give you a really great, diverse set of opportunities, and to be there for you and see how you're doing until you get there. If that takes 10 months, it takes 10 months. If it takes 10 weeks, it takes 10 weeks. If it takes 10 years, we're still going to be there. When you go into a job search in particular, you should not have a time frame, because it's what's more important than your time frame, unless of course you have to make money. And if you have to, you have to, and that's a different issue. But we're generally with people who don't have to but want to work, and it's more about what job they want to do. What is your purpose? What is your why? You went into a job when you were 18 or 21, and you probably just kind of fell in. The rest of it just kind of fell into place, right? Like that's really what happened. If when your children come and ask you like, hey, why'd you do this? Well, I was in the Navy, so
Right.
anyways, what is really important as you gain wisdom and age is you think about, what do you really care about? What really is important to you? And then we'll help you go find that job. If you can tell us what's important to you, we'll help you go find your job.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great service, and I'm excited to be a part of it. And I coach recent college graduates on how to navigate the job search, and go through resumes, and researching companies, because you want to work for great companies, and you're going to get a job, so might as well pick a great company. But it is interesting, because I'm empathetic to all job seekers, because I've been in involuntary transition 9 times.
Wow.
And it's a terrible process. But it's the same for a recent college graduate or somebody who worked for a company for 20 years, because the process is the same. The only difference is the 20-year, vet, 30-year, that's been in corporate America. They have professional experience, where the recent college graduate really does not, unless they had some kind of brief internship. But the concepts are the same. They really are. And they both have, usually no clue on how to go about it.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. It's a process that everybody can follow the same process. Everybody always asks the wrong question, though, which is they all ask, how do I get this job? Or what job should I get? And the answer is like, look in the mirror, because what's really important when you leave a corporate job or college or anything else when you leave school, whenever, when you decide you want to do, it's not important the job you can get. What is important is, what is the job you want? And don't think about it as the job I want to get. And that usually is because I think I might make a lot of money, but I don't think a lot about, well, what do I really think about what that company is doing? Is that something that I'm really behind? Do I really care about it?
Right.
Does the company themselves have the values I have?
Yeah.
Those are the things that you find out later. Those are the things like you find out, like you get fired 9 times. And so, by the way, any of you who are listening to this right now, if you haven't got fired yet, unless you are working for yourself, you will be. And it's just a matter of time.
Right.
And it will probably be, if you look at those situations when they happen, they're terrible. You never expect them. When they happen, you take them as the opportunity they are, because they are the opportunity for you to find something that you care about. Because if you really love and care about a job, you're probably never going to be fired.
No, I love that. I think, and this leads, I ask all my guests these last 2 questions, but it's a perfect segue, because the first question is, I love your advice, and as well as everybody else I've interviewed, but you're perfect, because for a recent college graduate, what advice would you give them as they begin their job search to get their first professional job? I know you talked a little bit about that, but maybe.
Yeah, no, there's a process that you go through in job search, which a lot of people call different things, but essentially it's what's the ideal profile of the best job that you could ever have? And you have to sit down and think about that, and literally write it out, and then go find that job. So what's important to you? I really like sports. Okay, well, let's sit down and think about what sports is. Well, what do you like about it? And what are the things you think you can do with that? The Japanese have this concept that what you love and what the world needs and what the world is willing to pay for and what you are good at, there's an intersection of those four things. So it's like, what do you really like? What are you really good at? You know, if you're not really good at talking to people, you probably shouldn't take a job where you talk to people all day long. If you're really good at or really bad at something, like I was a terrible writer. Well, you know, I what did I do? I got somebody else to do all my writing for me, and to this day I still do. But it's finding those four intersections, and then once you find that, that tells you the job you have. The mistake I think most people make when they go into search, we see it all the time, whether they're young or old, is they try to cast a really broad net. I'm going to just throw my net as far as I can. And you know what happens? They get no fish.
Right.
But the person who says, I do not want all fish, I want this one fish, and I know exactly where in the water that fish is, I'm going to go fish there and only there. And guess what? You'll find that first, there's nobody else fishing there. And second, you get a bite as soon as, because you went to a special place. You had the bait that special fish wanted to get. There's no one else throwing things in there. And that's the same thing as job search, which is you will not be happy in life and you will not be successful in your search unless you determine what that search is for first. It's an old thing about, if you don't know where you're going, you're probably not going to get there.
Right.
And that's what you have to do.
Yeah. Paul, the second group I love helping is if you decide after a period of time after you start your professional career that you want to be responsible for a team of people and be a manager and, you know, kind of climb the corporate ladder that way, where you have a leadership role where you're actually responsible for people. What advice would you give them as they begin their leadership journey?
I follow a servant leader process, which means that I look to see what ways I can serve those who are typically assigned to me or might be peers. There's always someone that you can help, and it really isn't hard. You can go to your boss, you can go to your peers and say, you know, I really enjoyed working with your boss. It's easy. You go say like, hey, I really want to tell you, I really enjoy this company. I really want to understand how I can be of more value. Not how do I, the worst thing to do is say, I really want to be I really want to be an SVP.
Yeah.
What?
Or I want your job.
Yeah, or worse, I want your job. Now you put the person on the defensive, like, oh, he's gunning for my job. But if you go there and you say, how can I make your job easier? How can I add more value to this company? How can I help any of my peers? Because I really enjoy this here and I really want to have an impact. And you can do that with your peers, right? Like what you're going to find is like, well, I compete against them. You know what? The more senior you get, the more your peers elect you, right? Like what happens is if everybody that is a peer of yours goes to the bosses, where that might be the board of directors, and says, that guy is terrible. You can't trust him, can't believe anything he says. He's not respected. That's what people are going to say if you try to make this a dog eat dog world. If instead you think, well, I am competing with my peers, and if that peer is better than me, then I hope he gets the job, because we need somebody good up there, and I need somebody good to report to. It doesn't bother me if someone gets a promotion I didn't get. All that I do is go back and say, I wonder what he or she did that I didn't do that got them to where they are. And this is actually not hard to find. You can talk to your boss, you can talk to your peers, you can talk to anyone, and just ask them how you can be of more value to them. You're going to find that people respond to that in a very positive way.
Yeah. Paul, you're a great guest. I love your career. I love your LinkedIn profile and how you're just so transparent and you're a real person. And what you're doing for people 50 or older in job search is phenomenal. So thank you for being on the Corporate Couch today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed it.
What a career Paul has had. And what I love about him, Well, first of all, he served our country. He's a funny guy too. I mean, he moved, I think he said 60 times over the course of his life. He went to like 12 or 13 primary schools, three high schools. He was the only one out of all his siblings that did not attend four or more high schools. He only attended three. But it comes out in his personality. He goes, look, I had to make friends. I embraced change because that's all I had growing up and throughout his life. I mean, he's lived in New York City. He's now in Dallas. He lived in Europe. I mean, like the guy was all over the place, and served our country, and obviously grateful and honored he did that. But and just I love his story. E.F. Hutton, which was a financial wealth management company, mainly selling stocks when Paul started his career. But it reminded me of the story of back in the day, friends of friends would call you and try to pitch you on stocks. So I remember investing in this stock that literally was a device for removal of hemorrhoids that you can do in your home. Yeah, so that was with Merrill Lynch, and I did not make money on that stock. Trust me.
Didn't make you rich, huh?
No, and yeah, it just became a pain in the ass. No pun intended. But the other thing, what I love what he's doing too is he's running his own company, which helps wealth management firms, registered investment advisors raise capital, so smaller firms, probably a billion or less in assets under management, and which is phenomenal. And he's basically said, I didn't want to work for anybody anymore. He goes, the higher I moved up in the company, senior VP, all these prestigious titles, he goes, I felt like I was less a decision maker than I was at lower levels because I had to report to the board, the CEO, the other people, and he goes, I made less decisions. He felt every time I moved up, I thought I was going to have more power and be able to do more things, and he felt it was the opposite. But he started this Stage3 Tribe. He wrote a LinkedIn post about, I don't know, I think it was 8 months ago, that got like 800,000 impressions, but it was about ageism in the workplace in terms of hiring. So he's basically started this third stage tribe to get people in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s employment and help them navigate the job search. And I'll tell you, I love that because, just personally, I have faced the ageism. Even though I think I look young and I act young, it's just out there. They see it on your resume. They see the jobs, they look at your LinkedIn, and, and the thing is, we're all going to age, no matter what gender you are, whatever your ethnicity is, we're all going to age. And here's the thing. He has all these data points on, over 80% of people over the age of 50 have either experienced ageism in the workplace or know a friend or family member that has. And
Yep.
he's saying, like, these are the people, 65 and older is the only age demographic that is increasing in size. All the others are not, right? And
So
these people
you're
want
gonna
to
hit
work, and employers are afraid, oh, they're just going to leave me after a couple of years. Well, data shows that these people are ones that will stay 10 years, and the 25 to 35-year-old age group, they leave in about 4 years. So you
Yeah.
get, and there's so many advantages. There's the wisdom and the relationships, and they want to mentor the younger generation too. So I don't know. He's just doing some great stuff, and I just so enjoyed my conversation with Paul.
Yeah, it was amazing. I tell you, one of the things that hit me that he talked about, it was almost a throwaway comment for him, but it really struck me. It struck a nerve with me, and that was when he was talking about being in the military, and he said that when you're in the military, the mission is more important than the individual. And sometimes that's the very definition of what the military is. He talked about the Army Navy game, and everybody on the field was willing to die for everybody in the stands. So the mission, the thing that you're doing, is more important than the individual. But then you get out into business, and many times is reversed. that the individual can sometimes take precedence over what the mission is. Now, that's not universal. That's not always the case, but you and I both know that when you're in business, you're surrounded by people that are trying to do something for their own benefit. They're trying to get the next promotion. They're trying to get a raise. They're trying to get recognition. They're trying to make sure that their product sells better than anybody else's product, that their system gets installed before everybody else's system gets installed. They're always working for things to benefit themselves. Now, sometimes that benefits the company. A lot of times it doesn't, but it's very rare that the company or the company's business is the motivating factor for what they're wanting to do. And you learn in business school, for instance, and this is simplified a lot, but you learn that there's really only two things that you can do to improve the profitability of the company, to benefit the company. And that's it. You either increase revenue or decrease cost. But the problem is that that's missing the most important characteristic of business, and that is the customer. Are you benefiting the customer? Are you giving the customer value for the product that you're selling? If you're doing that, there's a really good chance that it will in turn benefit the business. If you're not, you're in the wrong business, or there's something wrong with your business plan. And if it's benefiting the business, there's a very good chance it's going to trickle down and benefit the individual. And again, if you're not, you're working for the wrong company. So I think that everybody in their career that are listening to the Corporate Couch right now need to look at that and say, instead of thinking what is going to benefit me personally, let's think about what is going to benefit the customer. Make the mission more important than the individual.
Yeah, and I think he related that over his 4-ish decades in Wall Street and in wealth management. The movie Wall Street with Gordon Gekko. Greed is good, right?
Yeah.
Like he goes that it was all about the individual being the advisor making money, but that was one of the shifts he related when I asked him, what's been the biggest changes? He goes, well, it's about it's being a fiduciary for the customer, looking for the customer's needs and not the individual.
So the financial world is kind of discovering that, and they even invented the word fiduciary to demonstrate it. I think there's a lot of other businesses that haven't figured that out yet.
Well, yeah, and that was the cause of the 2008 crash, exemplified by the great movie The Big Short. But there was so much greed, and they were selling shit, basically. But anyhow, just Paul was great. What advice would you have for our great listeners today, Joe?
We are going to that wonderful philosopher named George Burns. And George Burns one time said this. He said, you're getting old when you stoop to tie your shoelaces and you wonder what else you could do while you're down there.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoy the podcast, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me next week to learn from another great leader sharing their professional journey and insights.